A door opens in the floor. It is a black square, and the smell that rises out of it is the smell of everything that has died down there. It is the winter of 1323, and you are standing at the top of a stone stair inside an English castle you have never seen the outside of, because they brought you in through a gate at night. A man with a ring of iron keys puts his hand flat between your shoulder blades. He does not push you hard. He does not need to. You go down. You have not been found guilty of anything. That is the first thing to understand about a medieval dungeon, and it is the thing that will keep you awake for the next hour of your life. Most of the people rotting under a castle in the year 1323 have not been convicted. They are waiting for a court that meets when it feels like meeting, run by men who are somewhere else, judging a crime that may never even be written down. You could be here for a stolen sheep. You could be here because a lord wanted your field. You could be here because someone with money pointed at you in a market square, and pointing was enough. So no, you are not being punished yet. You are being stored. The stair turns twice, and the light from above dies behind you. By the time you reach the bottom, you are feeling for the wall with both hands, and the wall is wet. Not damp. Wet the way the inside of a mouth is wet. This chamber sits below the level of the moat, which means the water table sits above your head, which means the stone weeps all day and all night and never once dries. Your feet find straw. The straw is old. Something moves in it. The jailer lifts his lamp for exactly as long as it takes him to find the ring in the wall, and then he chains you to it. Here is the part nobody tells you. The chains are negotiable. The man holding the keys is not paid a wage worth having. He is paid by you. Everything soft about your stay in this hole, and there is very little that is soft, has a price, and he sets it. Lighter irons cost money. A dry corner instead of a wet one costs money. Straw that has not already been slept in by a dying man costs money. This is called garnish, and it is not a bribe, it is the system. It is how the whole rotten machine is meant to run. The prison does not feed you. Read that again. The prison does not feed you. If you want bread and water, you buy it from the jailer, at his price, which climbs every day you are hungrier than you were yesterday. You empty your purse into his palm on the first night because you are frightened, and fear makes you generous. That is a mistake. You have just told him exactly how much you are worth, and now he knows precisely how long he can bleed you. By the third day, the money is gone. Now you learn what the floor is really for. Hunger in a dungeon is not the clean, sharp hunger of a missed meal. It is a slow hollowing. Your body starts to eat itself in an order it chooses without asking you. First the fat, then the muscle, and your legs go before your arms, so that when you finally try to stand you find you cannot. And you sit back down in the wet straw, and you understand that standing is now a thing you used to be able to do. The cold does the rest. Stone below the moat holds the winter like a held breath. There is no fire. There is no window. You wrap the straw around yourself, and the straw is soaked, and the straw does nothing, and you begin to shake in a way that does not stop. A deep engine of shivering that you could not switch off even if you wanted to. And it is dark. You keep forgetting how dark. When the jailer leaves with his lamp, the darkness is total. A pressure against the eyes, and your mind, starved of anything to look at, begins to make its own light. Shapes crawl at the edge of nothing. You hear your own names. Men have gone into these places sane and lost their reason in a matter of weeks. Not from any single horror, but from the sheer erasure of the world. The removal of mourning, of faces, of the simple daily proof that you still exist. You are not alone down here. That is worse, not better. There are others chained along the same wall, and you can hear them, and in the black you build them out of sound. The one who coughs, the one who prays in a language you do not know, the one who has stopped making any sound at all, and whose silence you find yourself listening for, and dreading, because you know what it will mean when it finally comes. You share your straw with them. You share the bucket, the one bucket, that is emptied when the jailer remembers and not before. You share the air, and the air is how it kills you. Because the thing that runs a medieval dungeon is not the executioner. It is the louse. They call it jail fever, and it is typhus, though nobody in 1323 has a name for the real cause, which is the tiny insect living in the seams of every filthy garment in the room, moving from the dying to the living in the dark. The fever takes you like a tide coming in. First the headache, a splitting behind the eyes. Then the heat, a heat that makes the cold stone feel almost kind. Then the rash, spreading across your chest like a map of a country you do not want to visit. Then the confusion, and after the confusion, for most people, the end. Jail fever killed more prisoners than every gallows in England combined. It did not care whether you were guilty. It did not wait for your trial. Whole sessions of court were cancelled because the fever came up the stairs out of the cells, and killed the judges too. So you are cold and you are starving, and the fever is somewhere in the dark deciding whether it wants you, and you have not yet been accused of anything to your face. And this is the moment, curled against the weeping wall on day 9 or day 10, when you hear a different sound on the stair. Boots. More than one man's. And a voice above you says your name and says the word question. They have not forgotten you after all. In some ways you will wish they had. The room they take you to is warmer, and that warmth is a trick because the warmth comes from a brazier, and the brazier is not there for your comfort. On the table are the tools of a thing the law politely calls putting to the question. There is a frame with a roller at each end and a rope threaded through, and it is called the rack, and its whole purpose is simple. It stretches you. Slowly, one click of the roller at a time, until the shoulders leave their sockets and the hips leave theirs. And long before that happens, you will say anything, sign anything, name anyone, agree to any crime they read aloud. Because the body will trade the truth for one turn less of the rope every single time. A confession taken this way is worthless as fact and priceless as paperwork. It closes the case. It fills the line where a name is supposed to go. And once your name is in that line, the machine that was merely storing you becomes the machine that intends to end you. But maybe you are lucky. Maybe your crime is too small for the rack, and they simply throw you back down the hole to wait some more. Because waiting is the true sentence. Waiting is the thing that kills without a verdict. And in the deepest corner of the deepest dungeons, there is a special kind of waiting, and it has a name. And the name is one of the most frightening words the Middle Ages ever made. Oubliette. It comes from the French word for to forget. An oubliette is a pit, narrow, dug down beneath the floor of the cell, with a single hatch at the top and no other way in or out. They lower you into it on a rope, and then the rope goes back up and the hatch closes. You cannot lie down. You can barely turn around. There is no light, there is no visit, there is no jailer to bribe, because the entire point of the place is written in its name. It is a hole for people who are meant to be forgotten, and the horror of it is that forgetting is easy. A lord goes to war, or dies, or simply loses interest, and the man in the pit stays a fact that nobody remembers is true. Bones have been found in oubliettes still standing upright, because the pit was too tight to let the dead fall down. Now, you are still up here in the ordinary hole, still chained to your ring, still alive. And the question the whole story has been circling, the one you have been asking since the door opened in the floor, is finally close enough to touch. Do you get out? Does anyone? Some do. That is the honest answer, and it is a stranger answer than you expect. Escape happens, and it happens the way water escapes, through the smallest available crack. Prisoners tunnel through mortar softened by the very same damp that is killing them, scraping for months with a spoon, a buckle, a sharpened bone. In 1101, a bishop named Ranulph Flambard got his jailers roaring drunk on wine smuggled inside a barrel, then climbed down the outer wall of the Tower of London on a rope hidden in the same barrel, and rowed for the coast. Others were simply bought back out, ransomed by families who spent everything they had to fill the one purse that mattered, the jailers. And a great many walked out through the front, alive, for the plainest reason of all. The court finally met, heard the thinness of the case and let them go, because the medieval world was cruel and slow and arbitrary, but it was not in every instance out for your blood. Sometimes storage was all it ever was. So which are you? Picture the day the assize court finally comes to the castle, months after that door opened in the floor. They bring you up the stair, and the light at the top is the first light your eyes have taken in weeks, and it is agony, a white blade straight through the skull. You cannot walk unaided. Your own name sounds strange when the clerk reads it, and you stand in front of men in good cloth who have never been cold a day in their lives, and your fate turns on things that have nothing to do with the truth. Whether a witness bothered to travel, whether the fever took the one man who could have spoken for you, whether the lord who wanted your field is in the room, whether, in a world with no photographs and no records and no certainty, anyone can even prove you are the person they came to hang. Most who lived long enough to be tried were not executed. Hold on to that because it is real. The gallows is loud and it is rare. The dungeon is silent and it is everywhere. And the dungeon is what actually kills you quietly from cold and hunger and the louse in the straw, weeks before any judge ever says a word. That is the truth the castle does not want carved on its wall. You do not need to be sentenced to death in a medieval dungeon. You only need to be left there. The door in the floor opened. You went down. Whether you ever come back up is a question the year 1323 answers slowly, and without mercy, and mostly by simply running out the clock. So here is what I want to know. If it were you down there in the wet and the dark, with an empty purse and a fever coming up the stairs, would you have the strength to wait it out, or would you have begged for the rack just to make the waiting end? Tell me in the comments. And if you made it to the bottom of this hole with me, you already know which video comes next.